Wow, can you believe it? We've been living in this coronavirus pandemic for a whole year now. It's been a whole year since it began. The World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 an international pandemic on March the 11th, 2020. So there you go, 1 year. And I'm actually recording this outside today. It's the first time I'm doing this recording outside in the open, very COVID safe. Right? There's nobody around me. I'm walking outside in fresh air. And it's a nice day. It's not even spring yet, just the beginning of March, so we can call it late winter, but it's sunny and warm. So I'm enjoying the sunshine and doing recording. Please don't mind the noises, background noises, cars, dogs barking behind. But yeah, what a day to reflect on everything that's come and went over the past 12 months. Certainly our lives have gone upside down, but we're getting used to it. I can remember exact dates a year ago. It's a bit creepy. It brings goosebumps back to me when I think about things that happened a year ago. I remember, for example, it was Wednesday, March the 4th. I went to school and submitted a project to my teacher, and then it was the last time I ate in the school cafeteria. And after that, I went for a massage for the very last time. Couldn't believe it. Didn't think that was going to be the way a year ago, but that's what happened. And then Friday, March 6th, that day was the last time I went out to eat at a restaurant with a group of people. After that, no more. A week after that was Friday the 13th of March. So Friday the 13th, I went to work, and a co-worker was unknowingly infected with the coronavirus. Didn't know it until on Monday when I got a phone call with the bad news. And that's when I was realizing I had to go home and self-isolate for the next 14 days. The co-worker at the time, he didn't even get tested for the coronavirus. We were just suspecting that he was sick with something that was possibly the coronavirus. And it wasn't until a few days later before he was actually admitted to hospital and tested positive for COVID-19. So I was sent packing and sent home on a whim's notice that I would have to quarantine for 14 days, and I was so naive to believe that I'd be back to work in 14 days. I didn't know at the time that I'd be out of work for way more than 2 weeks. I'd be away from work for the next 2 months. Good times. And great time to develop some new hobbies. Right? I exercise a lot more. Well, mostly doing stretches at home and going out for runs. I baked my own birthday cake. I did some leisurely reading. Haven't had much time for that for as many years as I could remember. Usually too busy with either school or work to just pick up a good old book and read. So it wasn't all bad. And then, of course, the one thing that you would know is that I started a YouTube channel and started recording comedies and putting uploads onto the internet. Nobody really cares anyways. I don't think anyone really listens to me speak or rant unless I told you about me. But the pandemic pretty much ended stand-up comedy. So with the death of stand-up comedy, long live internet comedy. So here we have the year later, thinking back to the events that happened a year ago, and thinking back to how crazy people were and how scared people were. I mean, let's think about all the panic buying that happened a year ago in March. I remember when the pandemic was declared, the first thing that came flying off the shelves was toilet paper. I mean, half the world doesn't use toilet paper, but who would have thought toilet paper is like an absolutely essential item here? So right after all the toilet paper got swept off the store shelves, people start YouTubing. You know what's the most commonly, or one of the most commonly YouTube search items? It's how to use a tabo. Okay, before March 2020, probably the only people who would watch that video are if you're going traveling to a country in Asia. When the pandemic hit, if you had posted a video about how to use a tabo, you probably got 100,000 hits since a year ago. Because everyone suddenly realizes that it's not only an essential skill to have when you're on vacation. It's probably an essential skill now, even if you're living in the Western world, because there's no toilet paper left. And the other thing that went flying off store shelves, that was canned goods and dried noodles. And suddenly people realized they got to stock up. It's like Armageddon. It's the end of the world. People suddenly realized that if you didn't buy anything now, stores were closing down, people were being sent home, people were being laid off, and there were huge lineups at grocery stores and markets. I mean, the stores basically got to the point where it's like one out and one in. One out and one in. They had to count the people that were coming in and out. And people were going in with 2 shopping carts filled up to the brim with goods and probably merchandise falling off the back of the shopping carts as they're going to the checkout line. It was total chaos. People were just like frantically buying everything out. I mean, and people were losing jobs like crazy. And yet, grocery stores were hiring, except some people were too scared to work. Because even before toilet paper and canned goods and dried noodles were sold out, long before that, there were already no more hand sanitizers and no more masks. So people were working with less than ideal PPE. So the next thing that disappeared off store shelves after that was actually flour and baking powder. When you're stuck at home with nothing to do and nowhere to go, people start finding hobbies to do. Just like I said, I baked my own birthday cake. A lot of people start baking and cooking at home. Now, as the pandemic wore on and the lockdown wore on, the next thing that became a hot commodity were hair cutting tools. And then there was the fun of learning how to use those tools. And if you didn't know what to do, well, then you just shave it all off. Easy peasy. But first you have to get the tool, right? So after that, the next thing that people started buying out were mason jars. Oh, didn't know those were so fancy. But once again, when you got nothing else better to do at home, you start needing certain items for your new hobbies. Let's see, what else was next? So after mason jars, it's toys, puzzles, games. Well, kids need things to do at home too. Right? When there's nothing to do, you start needing puzzles and games to keep yourself occupied at home. What I don't know is whether book sales went up. I mean, I said I read a book during the pandemic and libraries were closed. So probably book sales went up too. The other thing that went up was pet sales. People start adopting pets. And the thing you don't realize is, yeah, you may be at home with nothing to do and nice to have a pet to keep you busy. But what are you going to do when you go back to work? Just going to look after the pets. You have a plan in place. Or if you don't go back to work, and if you have a little cash on hand, how are you going to pay for the pet to go to the vet? The other thing that were pretty well bought out were actually bicycles. People wanted to buy bicycles, probably not just for leisure, but as a mode of transportation. You don't want to get on the bus anymore or take public transit. So if you can't afford a car, then you're probably buying bicycles. So bicycle sales went way up. And then there's another thing that went way up. That would be homes. Detached homes, houses. Right? When you've got a family of parents and kids living in a condo unit, 2-bedroom condo, suddenly when the kids are sent to study at home and parents are now working from home, there just simply aren't enough bedrooms and dens to go around. So people started realizing that they got to live in a bigger space. Everyone needs their own bedroom and a space to set up their computer with a high-speed internet connection. So people started buying out homes. So just as interest rates were going down, people were signing out loans and mortgages and going into bidding wars to buy houses. And house prices were going up not just in the city, but also in smaller communities. Because now people realize they no longer need to live in the city. They can work from home. You can be hundreds of kilometers or hundreds of miles away from work and be just fine. So isn't it nicer to move out to a smaller community where you can afford a larger home with a bedroom for everyone and a den for everyone and a yard for the kids to play in? The other thing that some people are wondering if it will be sold out were actually condoms. Yes, condoms, not condos, condoms. Because, like I said, when you're at home with nothing to do, people start making babies. But you have to realize, when you also don't have a job, maybe making a baby isn't quite the sexiest thing. So you need something to prevent an accident. Except some of the factories around the world that were producing these condoms, the employees were sent home and stay home. So there was some concern as to whether there would be limited supply, but I haven't heard much of it. If there is a baby boom this year, I think the numbers will start to be coming in around now. So let's keep track of the numbers and pay attention to the news. So there you have it. All the craziness 1 year ago. It was totally Armageddon. And everything was such a blur. I mean, every day you wake up, you turn the news, and there'll be new news every day. New rules, new regulations, new safety precautions, new restrictions. Even during the course of a single day, from morning to afternoon, the rules will change. I don't think anyone really knew what they were doing. I guess officials were pretending that they knew what they're doing. They're trying to sound smart and intelligent, but I don't think anyone really knew what they were doing, and they were just going off on the best judgment and the best evidence they had at the time, which was very little evidence. But now, a year later, there's something exciting to look forward to. I think the next exciting thing to look forward to is something called vaccines. Okay, so remember we talked about how everyone wants certain products during the past year. So now everyone wants vaccines. And if there's anyone doubting the vaccine, just look at the people who go way out of their way to get a jab in the arm. So for example, there's a CEO that took a private flight up north to a small community and pretend to be a resident there to be vaccinated. Now that CEO eventually lost his job, and he made one major miscalculation. He needed 2 vaccines. He needed 2 shots. 1 shot isn't enough. How is he going to get the second shot? But based on what you're seeing, there's no doubt in his mind that he does not doubt the safety or the efficacy of this vaccine. So if people are putting that much effort to getting a needle in the arm, probably it's a good thing. No, I mean definitely it must be a good thing, right? You wouldn't go that far out of the way if you didn't believe it worked, or if you didn't believe it was safe. You wouldn't risk your job and your life and spend that much money to get a prick in the arm. So I guess the next thing, now you have to teach the kids to love getting needles, right? Because you're going to need 2 shots. But before you get that far, just remember, kids are actually not approved to get the vaccine. The vaccine is only approved for adults. So what are children supposed to do? I guess they're supposed to get sick then, right? I think the point is for the children to eventually go back to school and have a corona party, and all the children get sick with coronavirus, and they come home, but there's nobody at home to infect because all the adults, mommy, daddy, aunties, uncles, grandpa, grandma, are all vaccinated. So I guess that's the goal, right? Getting everyone who's an adult to be vaccinated and all the kids to get sick at school for natural herd immunity. But for everyone else, you know what? I think I'm going to need more than 2 jabs in the arm. I really don't think it's going to be get the first shot, wait a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and get a second shot. And then, what's going to happen after that? I'm going to believe that I might as well call this year's vaccine the COVID-21 vaccine, because I'm pretty sure the COVID-19 coronavirus is here to stay. So next year there'll be a COVID-22 vaccine, and the year after that there will be a COVID-23 shot, and the year after that there will be a COVID-24 needle. And I don't know if it's going to be 1 needle or multiple needles, but I better get ready to roll up my sleeves as many times as I need and have as many bruises in my arm as I need. Which brings us to the next point. I believe COVID-19 is here to stay. I don't think we're eradicating it. I don't think we're getting rid of it. I believe COVID-19 is here to stay.